telling you, what a compelling gesture drawing. There's a real sense of the mass of the body's forms here. I like the way that you're applying value with this side of your stick. There, subtly on the thighs, for example, this side of the bosom, this side of the belly. You know, I'm thinking about a couple of things here that could make this better. First, could the thighs be longer? Let's look at that canon of proportions. So if the torso is 2 units, from outer hip to knee should be 1.5. Seems like that might be a little short. There's some curious things that happen in this particular pose. The way that the hand slips from behind the body there onto the hip, and the toes that are seen past the knee. It's really kind of amusing. Well, this Fumato drawing has a lot of great attributes. I'm especially enjoying the way that the neck, the far shoulder, the chest, how all of that's been articulated. It really speaks of how you're able to manage the vine charcoal in this method. I'm wondering about the legs, though. Don't they seem smallish? Now, if your mirror was high and tipped downward as if you were looking up at it, we might see exaggerated perspective. Hi, Christine. These are looking very good. I think that with your gesture drawing, we could see value on the figure, and your ability to put that down depends very much so on the lighting in the room where the model's posing. Check the length for your legs, especially with a gesture drawing. Per Nicolaides' canon, the legs measured from the outside hip to the heel should be 3 units, while the torso measured from the shoulder to the crotch should be 2. Note that the measurement for the torso is taken on the front, and the torso tends to look a little bit longer on the back owing to the bottom. You know, looking at this Fumato drawing, you are really doing a marvelous job showing the back, and even the back of the upper arm is well drawn. As has been mentioned in assignment 1, working with short gesture poses enables you and your model to work with some poses that are, well, more difficult, hard to hold for a longer session. And that's the feeling I get here, Brandon. This is actually a great drawing. I would love to see value, and to be able to detect where the value should go, you got to ensure that there's some dramatic lighting on your subject. Hi, Tangi. I'm guessing that there's a chance you may be drawing children here. And if that's the case, I recommend you go to an announcement I made a little while back about drawing children where proportions are laid out for a child-sized figure. Also notice that Doreen has written something about that too. Even if this is a child here, you're just drawing, I'm guessing that those legs, they've got to be a little too short. Also, I want you to emphasize application of value to the figure, and you're only going to see that if you've got dramatic lighting. You'll have to squint. Now take a look in the discussion. I've written a little more for you there. Yeah, these are a couple of great drawings, but I would say they both fit into the sustained drawing category. With the first one there on the left, I would encourage you to pay closer mind to the legs, and of course it's very hard to get that foreshortened lower leg just right. But, you know, draw it as you would anything else, simply by analyzing its appearance. And then the next thing is, I'd like you to check the length of the thigh from the outer hip to the knee. And I know the knee is a little bit eclipsed, but I think that could be a little longer. Now, in the second drawing, there's such a nice sense of peace about this. I like the slight asymmetry with one leg in the foreground, and would suggest that that leg could be a little larger because it is in front. Camille, you know, I see a lot of growth here with the figure, which is in fact a difficult subject. I really enjoy this back of the male figure, the musculature. And this seated figure, gee, you know, when knees are extended toward the artist in a seated pose, that can be very hard to manage because of the foreshortening. I think you've done well. I want to see more value within the form and less emphasis on line. All right, Teresa, this gesture drawing looks quite good. I like the rounded quality that you're achieving. Now, let's take a look at the juncture between the upper arm and the back itself. And of course that looks a lot different from the front view of the armpit. I think you're getting close here, but for instance on the right side there might need to be a little more space for the deltoid. Also, perhaps the lower legs could have more bulk. They might even be longer. With this Fumato drawing, you are on the right track, but this is a timid approach. You can push the whites whiter, you can push the darks darker. Well, check the gap between the thighs. Lisa, it appears that you must have gone to the beach or perhaps the pool with your swimsuited model. That's a great idea. It gives the drawing a theme even. There's a lot that's really great here. I want you to try working with your charcoal on its side. And I've been talking about making broad swipes of value with a third of a stick or a half of a stick. I'd also like to suggest that you could lay the stick on its side and scoot it so that it creates a straight, strong line. I often like to work like that. I'm wondering if this is compressed charcoal. It feels a lot like fine. Medium in this case was meant to be compressed charcoal or Conte crayon. They're pretty similar. Now, something that's great about this Fumato drawing is it's got you letting go of edges. You'll see I wrote more about it elsewhere. Hi Jason, looking at this gesture drawing, I can see that you have a certain knack for this. I want to say that it appears that your legs are quite a bit too small. I'd like you to memorize this canon of proportions and try to put it to use. Now with this Fumato drawing, well, I'm not seeing this sort of finesse and understanding of the figure there that I'm beginning to see in the gesture drawing, and I would like you to redo this. Christina, I know you're someone who's had experience with charcoal prior to class, and that's showing here. Look, for instance, at that bent arm and how the values applied to the underside of the upper arm. It's really making the arm look dimensional, and similar things are happening there in the back. I would like you to check your proportion here. It seems that the legs are rather skinny and rather short, and you're not the only one struggling with that. You know, I feel very much that when you're working with a standing pose, you need to get the feet right because they are the figure's connection with the surrounding. However, I'm glad to see that this figure is leaning also. Now let's just unbend that bent arm and imagine how long the arm would then be. The arm ought to be as long as the torso. That's the arm minus the hand. Hi Lisa, I appreciate that you're a regular participant in the drafts phase of making our drawings. And your drawings show improvement from the drafts. I want to take a look at this gesture drawing. This is closer to being a sustained drawing. Actually, there's a lot of care taken here. Gesture drawings are often done very rapidly. Let's look at the near thigh. That ought to look broader than the one to the rear because it's near and because the one that's further will be eclipsed by it. Also, she seems to be leaning forward a bit, and if that's the case, then maybe the right arm should be pressing on something, leaning on something to stabilize her. Now, looking at the finished version of this Fumato drawing, very, very nice. One benefit of drawing from the mouth here is that the musculature is just naturally more pronounced, and here you even got an athletic model, which makes a great opportunity to understand how the body is put together. One thing I'd like you to do, though, Denise, is work on applying value in your gesture drawing. Now let's take a look at the Fumato drawing. You know, I sense that you're having a hard time erasing, and that is suggesting to me that you are working in compressed charcoal, and this sort of drawing should be done almost entirely in Vine. Definitely apply the layer of gray with Vine charcoal dust only. Hi Melissa, you know I appreciate the drafts you're posting and the work you're putting in on these assignments. Your proportions look pretty good. I would say that you're a person who really needs to push herself to use the charcoal on its side. And with compressed charcoal or Conte crayon for the gesture drawing, you'll want only about a third of a stick, right? And actually take that and scribble with it on scrap paper to break it in so that there's not a sort of skin on the outside of your mark making tool so that it'll mark readily. And then you're going to want to vary your pressure. Let it be more or less according to whether you need a light value or dark one. I would encourage you to just keep drawing to practice.